Welcome to Green and Growing, the podcast where we refuse to stay stuck and be ripe and rotting. I'm your host, Wade Perry, and I'm here to help you thrive in every corner of your life, whether it's your mindset, your fitness, your business. Together, we're going to unpack the lessons and game-changing strategies to help keep you green and growing. Today, my guest is Lucas Kane, and Lucas brings a powerful blend of real-world leadership and deep psychological insight. He served as a U.S. Army medic. He has led multi-state real estate and logistics operations, and he's seen firsthand the impact of aligned leadership and self-awareness. Now, as the founder of InnerCompass Solutions, Lucas guides clients through non-directive coaching. We'll get into that in a minute. And tailored strategies that reconnect them with what truly matters. So whether you're leading a team or rethinking your next chapter, this episode is packed with wisdom for anyone ready to grow and lead with intention. Lucas Kane, welcome to Green and Growing.
Hey, Wade, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Lucas, you and I have known each other for several years, and I knew much more about you than you knew about me because I was one of 1,500 under your tutelage, and you were at the top of the food chain. And it was a genuine privilege and pleasure to know when I joined our company that you were the guy leading because you led with a calm, stable demeanor. One that instilled confidence and resolute that we had a path and that it was the right path. And I had a lot of respect from you for the first day I met you. So I'm very grateful that you're here. And I'm really excited. You and I talked a lot about InnerCompass several months ago. And I think this is a perfect fit for your background and really what fills your cup. But before we get started into some questions, I think the audience is going to want to know something that I wanted to know, and that is, what exactly is non-directive coaching?
Thanks, Wade. And if I would have known the intro was going to be that good and the compliments you gave me, I would have been coming on your show a lot sooner. So thank you so much.
You're
Very
welcome.
flattering. You filled my cup just with the intro there. So um, with that, uh, the question about non-directed coaching. So non-directed coaching is basically letting you guide yourself, right? So what I mean by that is a direct coach or somebody that's using directive is going to um, tell you what they see and then start giving you suggestions, start telling you what should go next, and then moving you forward that way by giving you their opinion, their thoughts, those types of feelings. When it comes to the non-directive part, though, it's about asking questions, deep, insightful questions that help you get to the solution that you want to go. And that does a couple of things. One, if you're coming up with the solution, you're more likely to take action and have ownership of it. It's your thought, it's your idea, right? Which really
Hold
helps
on.
move
That's
people
gold.
forward.
That is gold. Can you say that again? When
Absolutely.
they come up with it.
Right. So when the client comes up with it, they're more likely to take action because it's their thought, right? I'm not telling you to go do something. I'm not instructing you. Nobody likes to be told what to do. So if we ask questions, now we're able to move forward. What is it that you want to do? There could be 3 or 4 opportunities there. Which one is the most interesting? Which one do you want to move forward with? Where should we explore, right? Coming in like that will help move a person forward because now they have ownership.
So, Lucas, as I've mentioned, this is absolute pure gold. And when I think back to our prior conversations leading up to this event, I think I shared with you that my dad was one of the pioneers of the personal development movement back in the 1970s, and with 3 other guys who were incredibly dynamic, went on to be wildly successful. But the company went bankrupt because the world wasn't ready for the message. And so much of the content back then was truly directive. You need to do this, you need to do it this way, you need to do it this many times. And it was almost a one size fits all. And if what I'm hearing from you in the non-directive approach is that how are we going to find the right path for you? not the path that somebody dictated for thousands in the past. Is that somewhat on the right track?
That is absolutely on the right track. We think about it, it's a choose your own adventure. I don't know if you ever read the books when you were a kid where you go through and if you want to do X, go to page 68. If you want to do Y, turn the page, right? And then you go through. I always died in the jungle by poison arrows. So same thing
So,
with this, right? With
go
the
ahead.
coaching aspect, that exact same thing of where is it that you want to go? What's your journey? What page do you want to turn to, right? We have to have that destination. So, but I can't tell you what that is. You've got to tell me, tell yourself really.
So it's almost as if you are an intuitive, I want to say leader, but that's not an intuitive guide to help someone determine what is most important to them and create a path to go get it.
Yeah, for the most part. The only thing that's there is they're creating their path as well.
Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
you're not
So
creating the path. You're
I'm
helping them
guiding.
determine that.
Right. I'm helping them
Okay.
come in alignment.
Got it. So through this non-directive approach, your coaching is really all about helping people tap into their own direction. But in your experience, what tends to get in the way of people trusting that inner compass? And how do you help them find their way back to it?
Great question. So our compass is similar to an actual compass, right? So if you take a magnet and you move it closer to a compass, it's going to pull the needle off course. There's an energy that's influencing it. Same with our lives, right? We can be out of alignment because of outside noise and internal noise with that as well, right? But external expectations, family, friends, while it's meant with good intention, sometimes somebody will say something along the lines of, are you really sure you want to do that? Is that really the right
Mm,
option? It's meant with good intention, but they're casting that doubt. And so then maybe we don't move in something that's in alignment because we have this expectation or we have a responsibility and we don't want to move there, right? We don't want to let that go for whatever reason.
mhm.
Um, right. Also, the stories we play in our own heads. Sometimes we're off. What are our values? And that's really what it comes down to is are we in alignment with the values? Um, we've internalized what success is supposed to look like
Mhm.
based off of those outside influences. So how can we pull that back in and really get into what is success for us? So my job in that, go ahead. You were going to say something before I jump into
No, no, no.
the
No, no.
yeah. So my job isn't to give people the answers, kind of like we already talked about within non-directive. It's to help them create enough space so that they
Mm.
can hear themselves again, right? We're going to create space for them so that they can get everything else out and really hear where they want to go. Get into that, and that way they're coming into an alignment, right? Getting in tune with their compass.
I think that what you are doing with Inner Compass is so incredibly valuable and in a way groundbreaking. And I say that because of the phrase you just touched on, and that is creating space. Something that you just don't hear about in today's society, and you don't hear about it in the industry of personal development very often. When you think about our society today, it is so busy, it is so noisy, it is so action packed. There is no downtime anywhere. And so we stay on this hamster wheel, just running and running and running and running. And we're locked into whatever track there is that we never have the opportunity to really think about okay, what is another path? What else can we do? And by creating space, quiet time, the questioning process that you're taking them through, it actually removes those blinders that society puts on and the self-imposed fast track that we've been on. And it allows the brain to imagine, hey, where else could I go? Am I somewhat on the right track there?
Absolutely. All those external factors, we talked about the fast track. You mentioned, the noise that's there and the expectations we're moving through. When you think about that, that whole process is we're showing up for everything that's outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
What changes when we show up for ourselves? Truly show up for ourselves. And that's what giving you that space is. It's giving that time to reflect inward and figure out what's important.
So this actually begs a great next question. And that is, once people have the opportunity to create that space, and do they then come to the realization that they have been agreeing to commitments, events, tasks, people, whatever it is, that are either not going in the direction they want, are not aligned with the values that they want, and they find themselves in internal conflict over this is where I really want to go, but my track is drawing me over here. Do you, number one, do you see that? And do you think people don't even realize that they're out of alignment until things really get bad?
So both great questions. So first, the shift that happens when they realize that, when they're going through it, and it's like, oh, there you can just see the epiphany. You can see the light bulb go off. There will be a change
Right.
in um in body language, right? There's just like this whole shift that you can visually see if you're on screen with somebody that takes place when they experience that. Now it's helping them come into alignment and figure out what's there. And it may not be that they're on the wrong track. It may just need that they change the way they look at what they're currently doing. Maybe it's a trajectory they still want to go on, right? But they need to look at it a different way. Wayne Dyer, the author and
Hmm.
everything else he is, has the quote that is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes. Paradigm shift.
Paradigm shift. Exactly.
Are there early signs that people can tap into that help them realize that they're off track or that they're not in alignment?
Absolutely. You know, it'll start subtly for most. Irritability, lack of motivation, right? A feeling that you're pushing and not progressing, maybe walking upstream, if we use a metaphor. Um,
Mm,
Sometimes decision making gets cloudy because it feels like a fight sometimes. It's a struggle. And that's where that disconnect between what you're doing and what actually lights you up, that's what's happening. You're experiencing that because you're not in alignment. And oftentimes it comes down to value alignment, right? What are your values? How do you want to show up? And something's pulling you off, whatever that may be.
would you agree or disagree? And I do not know the answer to this. I'm just guessing that it's kind of like when people do things that they love to do, things that they are intrinsically connected to as being part of them, that it is actually energizing. It actually is an energy giver, as opposed to being disconnected away from what you believe you are called to. It is an energy suck. It is an energy drain. And it actually becomes like you're running an oatmeal and you're taking 3 steps forward and 5 steps back. Is that where you're going in terms of that energy alignment and what you are aligned with is an energy giver versus those you're not are energy takers?
I think that's very fair. I think that's a great way to put it of that what takes, what gives away. Now, we got to be careful with that because there's all aspects of our day-to-day lives that, let's be honest, we don't necessarily enjoy, whether it's work or something else. And so that's a necessary evil, per se. We
Yes.
need to go there. It's something that we have to do. So we can't just look at a small section of what we're doing and be like, oh, this is because I'm out of alignment. Sometimes administrative for me, paperwork sucks. I don't want to do it. Right. So,
Yeah.
but it's a
No, thank
necessary
you.
evil. It's something, yeah. There's something that I have to do. I can't even give it to somebody else on some of the things that I need to take care of, but it's not what it's an energy suck for me, but that's something that I need to do. What we're talking about is really the whole life. What are we doing all day? Not the 20% that we have to do on the side, but are we in
Right.
alignment? What are we doing? And maybe it's not that it's out of alignment. Again, we just need to change the way we look at it because sometimes, um, and I'm going to quote a book title here, but the obstacle is the way, right? Sometimes the
Mm,
obstacle is the way we need to go, but we need to align ourselves so that the journey is a little more pleasurable, right? So if we can take the friction or the discomfort that's there and look at it in a way of, okay, so what values here? And how can I take my value, put it into this to move this thing forward so that then I can get past this obstacle?
So what I think I really heard you say is for people to not get focused in on the little things during the day that you don't like to do as part of your job, that's not an example of being out of alignment. What you're really saying is being aligned is having that mission, that objective, whatever the path is for your life, and that is energizing, and you feel like you are in sync with everything around you. As long as that is on track, there's always going to be little things that are part of any path that you don't want to do. So don't mistake those little things as being out of alignment. That doesn't mean you're out of alignment. That just means there's a task that's involved with your aligned path that is something you just don't really enjoy.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's great. I think
Um,
that's a great way to put it.
you know,
And
it's
when you're in alignment, there's a flow. Sorry. When we're in
yes.
alignment, like we just go into flow state, right?
So, Lucas, I absolutely agree with you that when you're in the flow, when you're in the zone, when you're in the slipstream, everything's effortless. Everything you touch turns to gold. And it seems as though you don't really have to work that hard to do it. And it's because you're aligned with this is what we are here to do. This is what fills my cup. And I think that it's an internal subconscious conflict that leads to being in the muck where you just can't seem to get going forward. And that leads me to something that Anthony Robbins taught me this is over 30 years ago, and that is what you link pain and pleasure to is going to help determine that outcome. And so there are mornings that I do not want to get in the gym. I just don't. And despite the fact that I built a gym in my house so that I would have no excuses, there are days that I'm like, no, you know what? I link up the physical pain that comes from being sore the next day and even more 2 days later. And chose to link that with the pleasure of knowing that when I am 70, 75, 80, I will be running around with my grandkids and I will not be the guy on the sideline with the walker. So trying to flip the script mentally to align with, okay, these are my governing values. This is what is most important to me, can take somebody from feeling pain of those little things and redirect it to, no, now I'm in the zone. Have you found that at all with the people that you coach?
Yeah. Well, usually it's an after, it's looking back, right? So when you go through a session and you start discovering the alignment, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? There's a process that comes through. We got to establish the goals, we got to establish those values. But when they start seeing that, and again, we're not going, it is for work as well as personal, it blends,
Mhm.
but they can start aligning what they're doing presently. There's a shift. They start noticing there's more energy. Maybe it's getting up in the morning and they're not dragging getting out, but they're jumping up and it's more excitement. There's more of it's an opportunity instead of a, God, I gotta go do this. Um, right. There's a subtle shift that happens. Um, there's another part of this that I want to touch on is that just when you're out of alignment doesn't mean you have to burn the whole thing down.
That is a really good point.
Right. It's can be as simple as again creating space. It's taking that pause, being comfortable in the moment of stepping back and then asking yourself better questions, recalibrating what you're doing to match who you want to become.
Mm, that is really good gold. That is really good gold. You don't have to burn the whole thing down. Identify what's not working and reevaluate. I like it. I like it a lot. Now, you've coached a wide range of teams over the years, and obviously a wide range of individuals. When you think about the healthiest, highest performing people and teams, do you notice any patterns or qualities that stand out that are consistent along these people?
Absolutely. So there's always trust and clarity, right?
Ooh.
every single time. High performing teams don't avoid hard conversations. So there's psychological safety there. You know that you can go to the team leader. You know that you can go to your boss. You can go to whoever that person is and have a conversation because they're going to lean into it because they built the trust of an honest, safe environment. That's number one. The other one is clarity. Well, let me go back up. But the other part of the trust that gets there is consistency,
Ooh, good one.
right? Showing up the same way because you're going to burn that trust down if one day you're like, yeah, okay, here's this. And then the next day you get something and you're firing at them, right? You've got to be consistent in the way you handle problems. You've got to have that. If it's all over the board, there's not going to be that trust because they don't know what they're going to get.
Those are two, well, you've only touched on trust, so let's hear about clarity.
Clarity comes into communication, right? How do we communicate? What do we do? Rolling out expectations. There's a great model out there. It's GRPI. So for team building and getting into the communication part. And oftentimes when you're working within a team, people start with the relationships first. When there's conflict, wrong spot to start. We want to look at the goals. We want to look at and then go down to the roles, right? So if everybody knows what the objective is, and then we can go into the roles and we know where our positions are on the team, and then we can get into that process. And now we look at the relationships, that interpersonal. Oftentimes, where it comes in is we don't have the goal or the roles defined. And so somebody is like, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. And we have that inner conflict. The other part is when we get into that personal relationship part, especially if you're in different departments and you're working cross-departmental, building a common language, right? And that's where, because different departments are going to communicate differently.
Mm-hmm.
That's where if we have a common language where if you come in with a DISC behaviors assessment or the five behaviors, which is based off of the five functions of a team, you come in with an assessment like that, things I leverage to help teams communicate, help leaders grow as well. You come in with one of those, now you have a common language because everybody's speaking the same terms. Everybody understands where you're at. And now somebody might show up differently than you, but you can find a spot of what value are they bringing to the team, what's their position, and now we have something to build off of.
I think those two components, trust and clarity, it's interesting. Let me back up. When you think about complex situations, the effectiveness of addressing it lies in the simplicity of how to address it. And when you think about what you just talked about in terms of trust and clarity, you're boiling it down to two really important factors. And one thing that made me think of this as you were going through it is the effectiveness of the military. When you think about the effectiveness of the military, it is incredibly consistent. They do not avoid tough conversations. They address it right there, nip it in the bud. Because if they don't, then somebody else higher up is going to notice it and it's going to get worse. And when it comes to clarity, they're all speaking the same language. Now, the fact that in the military that it's all in acronyms that nobody seems to know except for them, but it is the same language. And every single person involved knows what the language is. They know what the goals are. They know what the roles are and the relationship between them. Those are two really powerful components, trust and clarity, to boil down what could be a really complex mess. So I applaud you for that. That is every group out there that is considering a coaching relationship, they need to listen to that because those two things are going to help far more than almost everything else. In fact, anything else that somebody tries to do to fix their organization would probably be, for the most part, a waste of time if they did not address those two things. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, if you don't have trust, you're not going to be able to build anything else, right? You're
No.
going to have a bad culture. If I can't trust, if I don't know that I can go and have a conversation or point something out to add improvement, it's not going to be built. There's going to be, we can have all the best systems in the world. But if I don't trust the people I'm working with or my leader, it's going to break at some point in time. It might still be moving, but it's going to break. That cog is not going to go all the way through.
Chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And if
Absolutely.
you've got a weak link in communication, a weak link in trust, a weak link in clarity, at some point it will break the organization.
Absolutely.
And the same goes for people in the organization. One bad apple will spoil the whole bunch, converse to what Michael Jackson told us. So your company is called InnerCompass Solution, which feels really, really intentional. So tell me the story behind the name and how does it really reflect what it is you're doing with your clients?
Intentional. Yes, absolutely. It was intentional. Everything we talk about is that internal compass, right? Our values, that internal guide that we have. And so that's really where it came from is how do we move ourselves forward? And what does that look like? So my job is to just be some of the energy that helps you get back in alignment. So identifying those values, what that looks like. And the solution aspect of that comes from I believe the solution is within. You already know the solution. Most of us know what we need to do. For whatever reason, we're not taking action. So sometimes we need to clear the energy on why we're not taking action, going back to the external and sometimes internal energies that we have that are pulling us out of alignment. We just need to recognize it and find out what's behind it. And is it true? Right?
I would guess that maybe the toughest part of the entire process that you take people through is the recognition, is
Hmm.
being able to put their fingers on their own pulse when they're not in session with you. They're out in the wild, they're out on their own, and they've been through one, two, three, six sessions, whatever it is, and to be because drift happens in life. We get knocked off course
Absolutely.
either because somebody popped something into our head that caused doubt, or life got just incredibly busy, and all of a sudden you miss this or you miss that because you're so focused on this. So we get knocked off course quite a bit. And I think that the toughest thing outside of a client being able to truly open up and bear themselves. That's the first hurdle I would guess. And then the second is after they've had some of the Lucas Kane InnerCompass Solutions magic, that when they're in the wild and they're taken off course and they're starting to drift, is to have the wherewithal, the emotional intelligence to put their fingers on the pulse and recognize, hey, whoa, wait, we're not going down the right path. This doesn't feel right, and to bring back. Is that fair to say that those are the two toughest things that you deal with?
It is. It's always tough to take our own accountability,
Mm,
right? And
it
so that's
sure,
what you were getting at, right? We never want to
yes.
look at ourselves, but yet any issue that's coming up in our lives, we're there. So there's something that's going on, right? And so we need to look at our role, even if it's handling conflict in your team. What's my role in this? How do I need to
Mm.
show up to handle
Couldn't
this
agree
conflict,
more.
right? And so it's looking at that. So how do we show up? What is there? And so getting that internal look is often hardest because nobody really wants to take ownership of what's going on around them, right? And again, going back to that same example of team conflict, what was my role? Did I set the expectations?
Ooh, good
Did
one.
I give the proper goals and did I give clear path for them to move forward? So do I have a responsibility in the conflict or do I need to figure out how to balance it because it's just a personality thing? And if that's the case, how do I show up for that then? Right. So again, it's looking at internally to get them to move forward. One part I wanted to add when you're just
Sure.
asking the question, it came up. Um, it's not counseling. What I'm doing is not going into your past. We're always moving forward, right? I want to make sure we have that clarification that we're not going to sit down and we're not going to get into what happened to you in childhood or one of those other things. And and get into the archaeology of your life and then trying to put it back together. We're looking at where you're currently at, where you're out of alignment, whether you're a CEO, a team leader, an individual, because we're all leaders in our own right. Wouldn't the world be something if we all showed up as CEOs in our own life and we took that responsibility? We looked
Wow.
at what if we had a mission statement? How would we show
Mm.
up? What's the mission and vision for Wade Perry in his life? Would you, and you probably run your life this way already, but would you run your life? Would most people run their lives a little bit different if we're looking at what is my true mission? How do I want to show up? Work and in life and on the personal side, right?
I think
Moving it there.
that what you just touched on might be the most unknown secret to personal happiness. Because I think that the vast majority, and when I say vast majority, Lucas, I'm thinking 80% of America, they are fed a bowl of cereal for the bulk of their growing up of you're going to go to school, you're going to get grades, you're going to go to high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to go to work, you're going to go 9 to 5, work in a cubicle, and if you do your job right, you'll move up to management, and then blah blah blah, and you just follow this prescribed path that society has created, not you. And I think that the idea of a personal mission statement, which was, um, I think that no, very, very few people even think of that as a concept. But I remember Stephen Covey talking about it, and about probably 30 years ago. And they had mission statements for families. And that is, well, I guess it's not cliche and it's not a pun, but that mission statement becomes your inner compass.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
It,
that
it
is
does.
brilliant.
Am I in alignment with what my mission statement is on how I want to show up? And that goes across the board in all things.
It's interesting you say that goes across the board in all things, because how you show up to a 5 a.m. workout will be the same as you show up to a 9 a.m. business meeting, which will be the same as how you show up to your child's athletic event or your child's music concert or whatever it might be. Because if you're showing up and you're intentional and you're focused and you're present in one thing, you'll usually be that way in many other things. It gets back to that old
Absolutely.
saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Absolutely.
Commitment to
Absolutely.
excellence.
And yeah. And it goes back to the number one thing is showing up for ourselves. And we're oftentimes not doing that. We're showing up for the rest of the world, but we're not showing up for ourselves. And so when we show up, we go to work, we get into the mundane and we get into it, we're living Groundhog's Day, right? Over and over again, because we're not focused on where we want to go and what is the trajectory of what's my mission and what's the vision and how I'm going to get there.
So I'm gonna try to bring this back for a minute and encapsulate everything that you've given us in the last, say, 15, 20 minutes. And that is, your objective is to meet people where they are, not to dig into their past. I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm going to help you look inside yourself as to what is genuinely important to you in your life, in all areas of your life. A compass has 4 points, there's 4 directions. And if you break it down, there's probably 8 directions when you include northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. And those could represent things like your physical life, your financial life, your spiritual life, your family life, etc. But meeting them where they are, making them look inside themselves as it relates to all these different points on the compass, and help them figure out for themselves as to, okay, what is the path for me? And how do I remove the clutter? How do I create space to determine what that is? And then at the end of the day, make sure that everybody that's part of this, whether it's my family, my business team, whatever it may be, that they're all on board and they all understand the goals and the roles. Am I getting kind
Absolutely.
of this together?
Absolutely. Right. I mean, exactly that. Right. Because when we start putting it all together, Now we're creating our destination. Where are we
Mm,
going? Right? When you start putting it together the way you just pieced it together, we're creating our destination on what that looks like, whether it's for our personal lives, our team, our work. And it goes back into uh, that GRPI model of what's it start with? It starts with the goals. The goal is the destination. Where are we going to? How are we going to get there? When it
I
gets into the roles,
really,
right? Go
I
ahead. You're
really
really,
like, yeah, I really like where you're going with this because so many times society put these goals out there for people. You should do X, you should do Y. And there was a great guy named Dr. Kevin Elko, sports psychologist, that used to say, stop shoulding on yourself, which I thought was a great phrase. And these were predetermined goals that society wanted to lay on people is you should do all these things. And then what you did is you decided, yes, I want that goal. I don't want that goal. And you started working towards it, even though it was completely contrary to maybe what was deep inside you. And you're actually flipping the script to say what's deep inside you as to what you genuinely want from your life. And we create that as the goal.
yeah, right. What is
That's
it that you
awesome.
want? Because
That's awesome.
otherwise, we're living somebody else's life, right? We're living somebody else's goals, somebody else's dreams, right? If we pull it back into the relationship, it's kind of like renting. I'm paying somebody
Oh,
else's mortgage,
that is so good.
right? Why am I paying somebody else's mortgage? Let me build my wealth.
Hmm. Same thing.
Let me
Why am I
build my
living somebody else's goal? Why am I not living
right,
mine?
right.
And
Because
part of creating that space must be letting go of what society says the goals should be.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely, right.
But you
My
are
goals.
really on to some great stuff.
Oh, thank you. And my goals are going to be different than your goals, and that's perfectly fine. So then when we start aligning like that, and we know what our vision is, we know what our mission is. Now I can show up for you and help you get to where you want to go, right? But how can I truly help you if I don't know what my mission is?
It's so
Gotta
good.
have that, right? If
Well,
I'm just
it
drifting,
gets
how
back
do I
to
show up?
yeah, it gets back to put your mask on first before helping somebody else,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, hey, for somebody listening today, whether they're leading a team, growing a business, just trying to find their next step, what's the one thing you hope they walk away with from our conversation today?
You don't have to have it all figured out to move forward, right?
Ooh,
Action cures fear, right? Oftentimes we're not moving forward because we're scared of making a mistake. We're scared of what's there. If you take action, we're that'll cure that fear because we're starting to build a process. We're starting to look at it. And so that's first and foremost, right? Is we don't have to have it figured out. But sitting back and not taking action isn't going to move the needle for you. You're not claiming what
oh,
you want. So it's looking at that part of it. The other part of it is that clarity. It's not going to come in a lightning bolt. You're not going to have a flash. Sometimes you will, right? It often comes in small intentional questions and then quiet choices. What are we doing for ourselves? Again, creating that space internally for whatever it is. I don't care if you're the CEO of a company and there's demands, there's everything else that's there, or if you're, again, going back to the CEO of your life, quiet choices. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be brash, right? You can just sit with it, work through it, and then the actions are going to create the noise. You're going to start moving through it. You're going to start moving forward. So that's the other part of it. And then if something feels off, don't ignore it, right?
ooh,
And there's a reason it feels off. If there's a rub or if there's friction, ask yourself, am I out of alignment? What's the rub telling me? Do I need to change the way I look at this? Right? Do I need to show up differently, or am I to get through this, or am I out of alignment and it's taken me off course? I was supposed to be going north by northeast. I, I'm going north, right? And so, can we look at that? Can we look at what we need to do? The other part is our journey never stops. We're going to have multiple destinations. It's not fixed, right? And so our values don't change, but what we want based on where we're at in our life and what's going on, that can change. So sometimes we need to pull out our map, drop our compass down, and take a look at what the next destination is.
Seasons in life change. And
Absolutely.
what for instance, you're in your young 20s to early 30s, you've got young children, and guess what? A whole lot of it is about the family unit, maybe college savings, it's quality time with the kids, it's teaching them values and judgment. Pretty soon you wake up and you're in your late 50s and you're an empty nester, and guess what? That season, it's not over, but it's no longer 90% of your life, it's 10% of your life. And you've got a different internal compass to go by now. And
Right.
I've got a hunch that there's probably some clients that get to this point of life and they've been in that first phase for 20 years and now they're not sure. And they're kind of like, okay, I've only got 20 years left of life. I've got 40 years of bucket list. Where I don't even know where to start from here. And that I think is going to be a great person for you to work with. There's just been absolute gold all over this today. And I miss having you part of our company, but I can tell you without reservation, you are doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing by your inner compass because it comes out. It is palpable with you on the screen or whether you and I are on the phone. It is absolutely tactile. I can absolutely feel it, touch it, smell it, hear it. This is this is your gift. And I've been part of this type of movement my entire life. I shared with you on a prior call that my dad was teaching me affirmations when I was 10. So I've been force fed this for literally almost 50 years. I've read the books, I've seen all this. You are one of the thought leaders that belongs in the conversation with people like a Dyer, like a Covey. I'm telling you, and there's gold all over my desk. I've taken literally pages of notes while we're here, and I want to share with the audience some of the things that really stood out. Number one, you do not tell people what they should or shouldn't be doing. You help them create their own idea because when it's their idea, they're more invested, they're more likely to make that happen. Nobody likes to be told what to do. Being aligned with what is your true calling, your passion, what you feel drawn to as an energy giver as opposed to an energy taker. Two words that are absolutely critical for either a person, a family, a business, a team are trust and clarity. Um, do not avoid tough conversations and make sure that you are consistent in how you show up and how you communicate, and that breeds trust. When it comes to clarity, look at the goals, then the roles, then the relationships. Because if you get the goals right and the roles right, well, then we just have to plug in the right players. If you try to start with the right players, there's no way you can force that on the goals. It won't work. You got to start the other way. Next, it is very difficult, it's very hard to take personal accountability. Everybody wants accountability right up until the minute that it's time to accept it. And a phrase that I have on the wall, basically in my office and my gym, is that you get to suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You're gonna suffer pain. One gives you the result you want, and the other one does not. Um, then you don't have to have it figured out before you start. Ready, aim, aim, ready, 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 aim. Doesn't work. You gotta fire at some point. You gotta go do something. Take some action. And at a minimum, when you take action, number one, you're gonna feel energized. You're gonna feel a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-esteem that you went out to do something. Even if it didn't turn out to be the wrong thing, guess what? You figured out what doesn't work. So by taking action, you never lose. You either win or you learn. And then the last thing, if something feels off, don't ignore it. I think that is one of the more powerful things that you mentioned, because when people have figured out through your tutelage, through your guidance, your non-directive approach, when they've figured out what it is that they really want, and they're going down that zone, they're going down that slipstream, that flow, and all of a sudden there's something that doesn't feel right. If they don't address it, pretty soon it grows, it festers, it becomes more and more, and you're allowing it, and eventually it will take you out of that flow and zone. True?
True.
Luke, this is gold. I mean, I there are a lot of people that are going to really benefit from what you're doing. I guess the best question I can ask you right now is, who are the people that will benefit the most from what InnerCompass Solutions is doing?
Great question. So people that are going to benefit the most are ones that are growth mindset, right? And so they want to grow, they want to move forward. If there's a fixed mindset, they're looking at the external. They want to take accountability of where they're at in their life and they want to move forward. That's first and foremost. And so, getting into that aspect and building on it, it doesn't have to be an executive. Going back to, I don't want to put a title on who's there because it goes back to we're all CEOs of our life. We're all leading something, whether it's family or work. There's an element of that, or in our own lives. If we're single, don't have a family, we're still leading, we're still moving forward. The other part is somebody's always watching. So how are you showing up for yourself? Because somebody is watching you, right? And so when we look at that, that's how we show up in life, right? If we're going to show up sloppy, somebody's going to make a judgment based off that. If we're showed up, we're put together, doesn't matter if we are or not, we're given that impression, we're going to move forward because we're showing up for ourselves in a certain way. So the person that wants to do it, the person that wants to move forward, whether it's a team leader that wants to learn about their team and really pull in and grow their team and how do they energize them. And again, team leader doesn't have to be real estate related. I'm in multiple different industries now that I'm working with across the board. So it's not focused on one spot because it's not about the industry. It's about the individual and how do they want to show up. So again, somebody that's growth minded, somebody that wants to improve performance. Maybe they want to improve some leadership. And so we're going to look at how they value leadership. What does it mean for them to be a leader? Not what do I think, but what do they think? Right. So somebody that wants to challenge the status quo, move forward and grow personally and professionally, that's the ideal person that wants to meet with me.
And it's funny, there are thousands and thousands of people that will tell you that they have a growth mindset. I think that of the people that will tell you that they have a growth mindset, maybe half, maybe a fourth are really genuinely in a growth mindset. It's almost back to the accountability and the discipline. They all want it right up until the time that it is to do it or do the things that are involved in it. So, but it's interesting. Obviously, I'm biased coming from the real estate industry. I personally think that you belong hosting a breakout session at EXPCon in Miami in October, because let's face it, realtors, especially the ones that are doing a lot of business, they find themselves being pulled away from their lives, their families. It's 24/7, 365, and they can very easily be knocked off track and not understand that there's something bigger than just the next transaction. And I mean that for individual realtors, for teams, I think even
Absolutely.
for the leadership of real estate brokerages. This is a big thing. I started gravitating mentally while we're talking to sports teams. You think about college sports now, many football teams have a general manager. And the general manager is really not just go find the best players, but am I going to find the right culture that's going to fit so that we're all rowing in the same direction? Are we all the same makeup internally? Because if we're not, it's not going to work. I don't care how good the players are. I think that this is getting me juiced. I think you're in your flow, and you're the right guy to do it with your demeanor, your delivery, your voice, your context, your background, your knowledge. I am so excited to check back with you in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and see what else you've learned in terms of working with high performance teams and individuals. Would you like to come back?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Awesome. Lucas Kane, would you please share with the audience how can people get a hold of you when they want to get on track with their inner compass and take their life into the flow?
You bet. Best way right now is to go and just send me an email, Lucas at InnerCompass.Solutions. So really easy, Lucas at InnerCompass.Solutions. Want to make sure that's INNER, not enter, but inner, right? Looking within. So
And by the way, I'm so glad that you repeated your email twice because I usually have to ask people, like the old car commercials, where they just repeat the phone number over and over. It's
20
good
years in
stuff.
sales, 20 years in real estate, right? I know to say my phone number twice on a voicemail, say the email twice. So yeah, Lucas at InnerCompass.Solutions is the best way. The website should be up by the end of the month. It's had a little bit of a lag.
Okay.
My fault. So a little bit slow on getting some information over to the company that's putting it in, putting it together for me. But that'll be out, and that is just InnerCompass.Solutions. So when that's up and running, you can go there as well. It's a great way to touch base, also see what programs are there. If it's a team, somebody like that that's coming in, they want overall, that's going to be a custom deal. We can work and see what pricing is, or that individually, that should be on the website when we're up and running.
Good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been on Green and Growing with Lucas Kane of InnerCompass Solutions. And I'm here to tell you that in my 59 years on this planet, I have read thousands of books. I have talked to hundreds of people, and I have literally dabbled in just about every area of personal development and growth that you can imagine. And I'm here to share with you that Lucas Kane is the real deal. He has a different approach, an approach that really involves you at your core and where you want to go, not where society tells you want to go. So, in our society today, which is incredibly loud, noisy, busy, distracting, Lucas Kane can help you find the inner compass to get you on the right track for the goals, beliefs, values, and fulfillment that you truly want in the rest of your life. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Green and Growing, Lucas. If this episode sparked something in the audience, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more inspiration and exclusive content. And remember, life isn't about progress. I'm sorry. Whoops, we're going to cut that. We'll do this again. Hey, Lucas, thank you for joining us in this episode of Green and Growing. And for all of you out there, if this episode sparked something in you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more inspiration and exclusive content. And remember, life is about progress, not perfection. Cheers to Green and Growing. We'll see you in your next episode. Lucas Kane, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Wade. Loved being here. Had a great time.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Green and Growing. I'm your host, Wade Perry of the Perry Properties Group at EXP. Welcome,